but it just struck me 30 years, to me the 1970s was a period just, you know, like 5 years ago. I was driving to school the other day in the morning, and something struck me that you're all now in your late 40s, and it just made me feel very, very old. Every once in a while, somebody will come back to have lunch with me that I had in the 60s or 70s, and they'll say, well, Mr. Carlson, you haven't changed a bit. And I said, you mean I looked like this when I was 30 That's a lot, it ruins my day. But since I last saw all of you, I have had a skull fracture, 9 operations on my eyes, a heart attack, and I thought I had 5 years ago that I had Lou Gehrig's disease, or MS, and it turned out I had Guillain-Barré syndrome. So I'm no longer paralyzed from the waist down as I was in 1995, right after Hillary was here. If that's any comment on her influence on her old conservative American. Hillary's tenure in the White House with her husband has been very interesting for Maine. We've had a number of very interesting news people come in here, NBC, CBS, ABC. This year we've had 2 crews which have had come in here, 5, 6 have come in here. They take videotapes of just about everything that we find here so that they have plenty of footage should she decide to run for President of the United States. Gail Sheehy showed up after her 13th book. She's also the editor of Vanity Fair magazine, stood by my door a couple of years ago, and I thought she was the grandmother of one of my students. And I said, may I help you? She said, well, yes, I'm here to interview you. You know, I'm writing a book on Hillary Rodham Clinton. I said, no, I didn't know that. Who are you? She said, well, I'm Gail Sheehy, and editor of Vanity Fair, and I've written 13 books. So we went down and spent 3 hours in the cafeteria, and after that she savaged me in her book pretty badly, saying I had a cult in Park Ridge that Hillary was a part of, and that she was a conservative. I don't believe in bubbly conservatives, so you know. But there's a picture in the book, and people come in here from Los Angeles, also from St. Louis. We had a disc jockey show up in a cab one day and ran up the stairs, knocked on the door, and said, I'm here to interview you. I'm from KMOC, I think it was in St. Louis. Well, this is happening for this period, and I don't think it's going to end now that she's in New York, but it will be interesting to see. We have the only documentation for ever belonging to the Republican Party. 2 auction houses in New York, one auctioned off, but it shows her signing up to work for Gary Goldwater in 1964, and her best friend Betsy Everly, Betsy Johnson, class 65, signed up too. And languages, his family languages. The school has changed a great deal. We have Hindi, we've got Urdu, we've got all kinds of other languages. The Ukrainians, the Russians are here in large numbers. The number of Jewish students is receding. They moved out to Buffalo Grove. They were coming in strong when you were here. We have a large number of Hindus, Pakistanis, Koreans, a lot of Koreans. The bookstore now is here, and I don't know if it was here when you were here or not, but it had come over this way that long ago. Huh?
When they built it.
Hall of Fame.
It still smells like the field house.
We have a Wall of Fame now, which I don't think was up, but this is done by Mr. Robert Reed, who was the phys ed chairman about 22 years ago. You might spot some people that you know here. Our greatest athlete was probably Steve Smith, in the class of 62, spent 10 years in the National Football League. We have Olympic stars on that end who were in the 32 Olympics under Sam Marzullo. And some of these people I'm sure you are perhaps aware of. So you might like to take a quick look at the Wall of Fame for a minute.
Well, here's 1970.
Yet we were one of the great football powers in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Big, solid. Basketball, we did so we're very good at wrestling, track, so in baseball now, and so.
Oh, this is the new pool. This went up when we were here.
Where are you from? What's your name? I thought you were about second grade. Where you from?
Hi. So what do you guys think?
Taking canoeing.
We'll take seats up here for a couple of minutes.
Never.
And Maine has gone through a tremendous change since you were here in 1970. The change began when you were students here, basically. I'm from the old Maine, you might say. This is the second high school, not the first. The first high school was on Thacker Street in 1902 until 1930. It was a beautiful red brick building with an apple green roof. And they were on the shift system in 1930 when this school was finished. This school was out in the middle of cornfields for the young people that are here. This was all farm fields back in 1930. And the book So Big by Edna Thurber was written about the farmers of Maine Township who were truck farmers who take their goods down into Chicago to sell them. So Big is the name. It was made into a movie starring Ronald Reagan's first wife, Jane Meyer. Yes, thank you. Now, the first building became too small, and so they were getting ready to open this, bought the land from the Hoffman family in 1926, and they built this magnificent old part of the building for $650,000, which would be equivalent to about 10 to 12 million today. They got all set to open the building, and the stock market crashed, as you know, in October. And the school board became very, very worried and skittish and said they weren't going to open the new building. The principal at that time, God bless him, he was the best principal that Maine ever had, we now realize. He was the one that gave it its character and much of its foundation. It was a man by the name of Charles Hamel. Charles Hamel was so adamant about having a new school for the students that he went to the bank and borrowed $100,000 on his old signature. Now, his salary was less than $5,000 a year. And he brought the money to the school board and said, I am going to open that building if I have to march all the kids from Des Plaines down Dempster Street carrying books. And the school board was literally sheepish and realized, well, if he had that kind of faith in the future, they should too. And so they gave him permission to open it. I'm writing the history of Maine now. Part of it's been printed in Hillary's guest book for her class. We met in Washington. They came and asked me if I would write it. I said, I'll write the first 30 years. And within a week, the Hamel family up in Wisconsin and had a copy of the history. How they got it, I don't know. And they then called me, and I asked them what collateral they used. They said he had no collateral, just his signature and his integrity. Now that's like borrowing about $3 million today. $100,000 back in 1929 had the purchasing power of about $3 million today. So he really went out on a limb. He died in a car accident at the age of 84 in 1954 while trying to teach adults who had never gone to high school how to do math. He also printed 2 math books before before I came here. He's a remarkable man. This building was to look like the Westwood campus of UCLA. If you go out to Los Angeles, the Westwood suburb, you'll find the Royce Building. The Royce Building was built to look like an Italian monastery built in the year 1000. One of my old students sent back a picture of that, and you can see that the influence of that building, the Royce Building, is here. So if you ever watch UCLA in one of the Rose Bowl games, between halves of the game, they usually take you to see the campus, and you'll see what the building looks much like this building. In 1970, while you were here, just before you came here, they tore down the original Maine High School. It served as a junior high from 1930 until 1967. And I taught there my first 3 years. I'm the last teacher who ever taught in the high school building. And Mr. Barker, the present principal, was in my homeroom year after I had that homeroom. Not the year I remember seeing him at recess time out on the campus, because one of the teachers, while we were chaperoning, said, "You see that kid over there? That's Bob Barker's son." Bob Barker was the new chairman of the English department and had taken the place of the chairman who had taught speech to me, too, here at Maine, Phil Ford. So we do have two people in the district who actually have a tie with the original Maine Township High School. They tore it down, and in 1969, I know we have at least one member of the class 69, Dave Zinn's class, I proposed that we put 3 benches, senior benches, on the campuses of Maine West, Maine South, and Old Maine, our Maine. And Dave Zinn ran with the ball. I still have his drawings. He drew a marvelous bench. We're going to take the old bricks from the old building and put them on each campus. You have to understand there is an element in our community that doesn't want to be reminded of what Maine was. Maine and New Trier were the 2 great shining examples in the Midwest among public high schools. We always ranked the number among the top 44. You're the only school on the planet Earth that formed a music fraternity, or any kind of fraternity for that now has 3,000 chapters around the globe and sings your alma mater song to music masters' words. You find them in Europe, Asia, India, Mexico, Central and South America. It was founded by Alexander M. Harley, who died at the age of 96. This picture is down by the auditorium. Even New Trier hasn't done that. When we proposed it, the administration said, yeah, let's get those bricks. So over 2,000 bricks were brought here, including the beautiful archways from the old building, which were going to be used, the Lungs wanted them used as the archway into this pool. Because the man who put us on the map first is the man whose picture is down here, Sam Marzullo, who gave us not only some Olympic swimmers, but also gave us some national swimming champions, as well as some state track champions. He just died last year at the age of 99. And he still played golf until he was 98. He outlived 2 wives, and his 3rd wife just sent me recently a box full of all the articles that go back all the way to 1916 on his career. A huge box of stuff. And there are 2 more boxes that the member class of 52 are holding before me down in Florida that I haven't moved yet. We got all set, and they cleaned off these bricks, if you can imagine, and stored them in the center court area, and I could see them out my window every day. And when I came back in the fall of '69, they were gone, and I felt they were in storage. No, Mr. Clauser, the principal, gave permission to have all those bricks and that beautiful archway used as landfill in some other part of the country, and delighted in telling me that they were no longer to be used here. And the second thing that might interest you is that he took me into his office when I took out the full-page ads. And he said, "Why are you interested in saving the architecture of this school?" And I said, "Well, the architecture tells you a lot about the community. Look at this ugly east side of our building. Flat, there's no distinctiveness, but the old part of the building has a great deal of beauty, and people still drive by and ask about it." I taped him on that interview. Bawled me out. He was very, very angry with me. That night I took the tape out of the tape recorder, my personal tape recorder, put it in a box, marked it with his name, and the date and put it under my desk in my room along with the tape recorder. When I came back to school the next day, it was gone, and so was the tape recorder. I just want to tell you, a lot of politics goes into this field, and a lot of people have spent a great deal of time saving things so that the next generation can have them. And this pool was put here out of respect for Sam Marzullo. We'll take you down to the other pool, which is also a beautiful pool, which is no longer being used. But don't think that politics is only found in Washington or in Springfield. Okay, it's in every profession, and it runs deeply through various situations. Now, if you've seen this pool, if there are any questions, I'll be glad to take one or two.
You guys.
This pool was built in the mid-70s. Just after, did you use it? Okay, and then it was built in 1967, 68. 1967, 68. That would be about right. Our football teams were known throughout the state. Maine South now is the place for football. We're outstanding in wrestling and in track and in soccer. Our Middle Eastern boys and our Indian boys are not used to playing football. We have no plan over at District 63. Our coach Corey has spent $15,000 to $20,000 of his own money trying to develop a football regimen over there for the younger of the 7th graders and below. And perhaps it will take, its course will become important. We don't know. We're hoping so. We hold the record for having lost more football games in a row than any other school in the state. And it's sad because at one time, Maine, New LaGrange, and Hinsdale were 4 dominant teams. So, but there are other places where we excel. That's the way district goes. All right, we'll take you down now to the old section.
Dave, watch your foot. Oh, you're kidding. Dancing. Here. That's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm going to get out so other people can take the exosuit.
Back when you were seniors, and you were trying to save money to school, the old gardens are. Young people must be educated to the best of their abilities. So we built this. Now, we fought against this. When I took the full-page ads out, I said, this is not for a center porch to be built. It should be built on the end of the building and keep this open with a beautiful grassy area. And one of the school board members said, no, we look at walls. I said, one of the reasons is that you have to look at walls. No matter where you look, you're looking at the brick walls. And if the students could have an area at the end, they could look out on more grass and trees, and we could keep this so that the students from the old building could look down into a park-like area. And George Washington assumed command of the Revolutionary War armies in 1775 on July 3rd, a year before the Declaration of Independence. He was brought up to Cambridge, Massachusetts, near Harvard College, because he was a Virginian, and in order for Massachusetts, which had already gone to war with the British, the world's most powerful nation, at Lexington and Concord, and it killed lots of British, and lost the Battle of Bunker Hill, which was really Green Seal in Boston. They wanted to get Virginia into it, so they took the most prominent military commander in Virginia colonial history at that time, George Washington, and asked him to take command. Now, when he took command of the forces in Cambridge, he stood on a white horse underneath an elm tree and assumed command, took the oath. That tree was as famous to our ancestors as the Statue of Liberty is to us. And in 1923, that
tree in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is 1,000 miles from here, blew down. And the DAR, the Daughters of the American Revolution, took slips from that tree and planted them around the world, around the country. And we had 3 planted in Maine Township. 2 have died out of the Dutch elm disease. We have ours in the front, was dedicated in 1930. And it says, under the parent of this tree, Washington took command of the American forces on July 3rd, 1775. When they were going to rip out the front of the school, they would have to tear down that tree. And I pointed out that to do that would be a degradation. It was a beautiful tree. It had been there for 40 years. It was well known by Maine alums. And the answer I received was, Paul, we'll do the same thing the DAR did. Take a slip from the tree in 50 years, we can plant another one, or have it. And that's the kind of short thinking that goes on many times. And you have to fight it wherever you can. We are very late in getting our centennial drive started. I wrote to the school board and months and months and months ago when I chaired the Park Ridge Centennial in 1973. We said we had to have 2.5 years to get ready. We're not really ready for it, but if any of you want to keep in touch with the Alumni Association, just write in care of me, the Association of Maine Alumni, Box 1143, Park Ridge, or send a letter to me here in the History Department, Maine. We will have some things that the alums are going to get involved in, and we're in the process now of doing it. The alums saved the front. They came to my aid in '68. They came to our aid again in 1980. And I know we've got many alums here who want to celebrate the birth and the heritage of truly one of the great schools, public high schools in the United States. So Box 1143 Park Ridge, 60068, or here in the History Department, and send it in my name so I get it, so I'm sure to get it, okay? Not only Harrison Ford, but Karen Black, who has been in about 80 pictures. Her name was Karen Ziegler when she went here. Her brother Grant was in the class of 52 just before I was. We have Carrie Snodgrass, who has been fairly, hasn't been as active as she would have liked. She had a child that wasn't 100% and she wanted to be a good mother, so she kind of left acting for a number of years. We have newsmen in the states of Washington and weathermen, newsmen in Washington, D.C. and in Texas. And the television rooms are over here. The art rooms, the sculpting rooms are up here. Down below we have some of the rooms for psychiatrists and for special ed groups. But the special ed groups now have fanned out all over the building. They're not just in the center court anymore. So we just have more. If you want to take a look at
I don't recognize it.
This opened after the fall after we left.
Oh, okay.
Fall of 1970. The radio station's right here.
It used to be in the old part.
We
You'll notice the center court bricks match the original building. Whereas the additions that were put on before that, when I was a student here, 1950s and 60s, do not match the building, which shows that there was a period of 20 years there with great carelessness, an attitude that didn't have to blend. But by 1970, we put enough pressure, a number of us, to make sure that they went back to the original architects and they put on the center court, and that part matches the original part of the building. Your high school was supposed to have more than one tower. It was supposed to have several towers, and the tower was put on in 1930 for the music department. The music department was to be on the 5th and 6th floors. There is a 4th floor on here that is just as long as this is. It's hidden by the architects, but it's very, very large. The 5th floor and 6th floor have 2 huge rooms, and the band and orchestra and choirs were supposed to practice there, and then the sound would go across the roof and would not bother the students. That was the idea. But architects are idealists, and they aren't very practical. And when you go up to the 4th and 5th floors, you see the stairways get narrower and narrower to the 6th floor. And as a result, they couldn't get a piano up to the basement. And Mr. Harley told me before he died that they were thinking of opening a place in the roof and dropping one in with a derrick, but it was going to cost $1,200, and the school just didn't have that kind of money. You know, students were bringing 5 cents a day here for a while during the 30s to keep this building open. The teachers were not paid for 7 years. They worked without pay during the time when I was born, and they were given chits which Marshall Fields and a few other places honored. But they were not given pay as you and I know, of course, and they were even thinking of closing the building for a while. We have a rifle range in the basement, which was used in the 40s and 50s and 30s. We had an ROTC unit at the original Maine High School. And, of course, this part of the building is now the old part, and you will remember this might have been the gym when you were here. The old gym was right here, and we'll go into it. It was made into a computer area, and IBM used this as a special lab to see about putting computers. We were one of the first schools in the Middle West to have a huge computer range of technology here. You'll also see a mural that was put on, up down here of the old part of the Maine, down here at the end, which this, of course, was also the library for a number of years. It was a three-story library. So we'll take you through here. When I was here, it was the balcony of the gym.
Yeah.
Swimming pool.
And, so maybe you remember that as well. Come on through here and then work and get in here for a minute.
Does anybody remember that?
Somebody's in our class. 400 for,
Presented by class of 1970.
Is everybody down here now? If not, just come on down here just a little bit more. This is a mural that your class put up here, some of your art students. You might remember Stan Ridley, who was the chairman of the art department.
Excuse me.
He was instrumental in having them do this mural. And Stan, unfortunately, last year was crushed by a car he was working on in retirement that fell on him. He was working under it, the car fell and crushed him. He was a marvelous art teacher and very traditional in many of his concepts, and he believed that your class, this was one of the first things that was done during his administration. Stan Whitley. I don't know if you remember him or not. Some of you perhaps do remember him. Now, if you notice, the Maine was to be finished in the form of an M up there. And there was to be another tower toward the south end here, where the word Veritas is. If it had been finished the way it was to be finished, formal gardens have been ripped out in the front here. I remember those very well as a student, and this is the area that they were going to put a very ugly administration building on that was going to cost lots of money. I think it was, what was it, something like $850,000. We were able to stop it, and when they put up the new building at Maine South, it cost $750,000, and it was going to cost $1 million. That's right. We saved the taxpayers about $250,000. They sold it for $1.7 million in the late 80s, and then moved the administration building into Maine South. It had always been at our school, which is too bad it didn't stay here. Perhaps Maine would have been treated better in the last 25 years had it stayed here. But we would have finished the building with another wing coming out the other end to make this M, which you can see here. We've just had a $6 million renovation of the science wing, which was put up when I was a student here. And we will have air conditioning probably in 2 years. It's going to cost a tremendous amount of money, but Mayor Daley of Chicago is providing funds to air condition the school because of the O'Hare Airport debacle that we have. We have a plane going over here about every 3 minutes and over Maine South. And so the Chicago administration has said maybe they should be sharing some of the revenue and helping us soundproof the rooms. We're hoping, if rumors are right, these horrible windows where you cannot see out of them in the classroom will come down again. We'll have the old-fashioned windows again, but the whole school will be air conditioned. I'd hate to pay the electrical bill for it, but it looks like somebody's going to have the money for it. Any questions down here? Okay, we're going to take you down the old pool, and we'll take you down.
It'll be oh, you cannot imagine.
Down the old pool, and down this.
This is where detention was in here too.
Is this Saturday morning detention?
About 7 years before you graduated, a student came in here at 6 o'clock in the morning and ran up to the 3rd floor and put her coat in her locker, and then stood on the bench here. This was not here in those days. She stood on this bench, and on the 3rd floor, one floor up, and she fell over the side to the 1st floor and broke almost every bone in her body. She's well now. The class of 64 was reminding me of this one that I took them through 2 years ago. But that is why we sealed off the tower and put these extra things on here to help keep that from happening. But it's a miracle that she wasn't killed. Now the 3rd floor is just like the 2nd. We have the library upstairs. If you'd like to see that, we'll open it up. If you are getting tired, we'll just go down to the rotunda. A lot of you like to see the these portraits for those gentlemen here, these heroes of ours who fought so valiantly in Vietnam. I want you to know that some of us insisted that these portraits be put up in memory of the boys from your era who were killed in Vietnam. We lost here about 6, including Glenn Pfister from the class of '69, who was a year in front of you. He stood at that drinking fountain. I had him in homeroom in current affairs. And I brought my class out at 3:35 to go down to the library, and I had taken him off for a steak dinner a couple of months before when he first went through boot camp. He had a very unhappy family situation for many years. And he stood by that drinking fountain, and he saluted me as we went down. I said, "Glenn, I wish you had told me you're coming." He said, "Well, I'm leaving for the front." And he said, "I want to take one more trip through the school before I left." 24 hours after he got to Vietnam, he shot through the head by a communist warrior or soldier, as I'd call him. And he was killed, as were the others. Eventually, we will put, before I leave here, a plaque up there. See that that's removed with the names of them. The reason we haven't done it, the other schools have theirs. Every once in a while we find there's another one that we had, and therefore we're afraid of leaving 1 or 2 out. We have on the football stadium, we've got the names of 69 of our boys who were killed in World War II. About 74 were killed, and I take my classes out there every semester, and some of you might remember this from your own your years here, and we read off the names of the 69, how they were killed in World War II, just before Veterans Day, Armistice Day, and then before Memorial Day. But these are for your era, and I promise you before I retire, we will have a plaque up there because they've been there a long time now. We had a big split in the history department. We had, for 5 years, half the department wasn't talking to the other half because I had brought in a Vietnam veteran to speak at our Maine History Board's meeting. He'd been a prisoner for 5.5 years. I have a gift. I think if I could get at it, I will have a gift for every one of you that you'll get a big charge out of. You'll take it home and you'll keep it. So I'll be right back. I just thought about this. If I had thought about this the other day, I'd have it for you right now. I'll come right back. I might have a gift for you. I may have a gift for you.
Oh, that's right. I thought we were over here.
Here. have one of these. Yes. And you can pass these around and
Whole pass.
back to one of your. We won't tell the administration. I just emptied our department.
Yeah.
Mr. Bissell taught her American history. He has incidentally, by the way, also of kidney failure. But I had her in here, and I was getting ready to have them hear General MacArthur's Old Soldiers Never Die speech. And she and Rick Ricketts, who owns the very, very fine restaurant in Melrose Park near the Maywood racetrack called the Homestead, was sitting in front or behind her. I think he was sitting in front of her. Behind her, and he says he was sitting in front of her, so I'll say he was sitting in front of her. So they were giggling and talking, and I was trying to get over the vocabulary and all of this and get them ready. Finally, I said, Hillary, Rick, be quiet. And it didn't do them much good. So finally, all right, outside. And I took them out here in the hall, and I called them out. And then sent them back, and I moved Rick from that side of the room over here, so he'd get away from me. She had taken him to the Girls' Choice Dance, and they were good friends since 4th grade. And they were both excellent students. Hillary wrote a term paper for me. It was 75 pages long, at 14, typewritten, with 150 note cards and 50 bibliographical cards. As did Penny Pullen from that class, who was our state rep for 16 years, and John Bellingham, and about 5 others were marvelous papers. And up until 66, I expected all of my students in the freshman or junior level to write term papers of at least 20 pages in length on some subject. Now, 30 years go by. And my wife and I went down to Melrose Park to have dinner. And I don't know why we would go now. It was icy, it was foggy out, February. And Rick's roaming around his restaurant, talking to people. I said, Rick, come on over here and sit down. Tell us about the inaugural. You went to the inaugural, didn't you? This is 1993. Oh, yeah, Mr. Carlson, I went to the inaugural. I said, sit down and tell us about it. So he said, well, you'll never believe this, Mr. Carlson, what her first words to me were after we came into the White House. He said, here we were outside watching the president get sworn in, and Hillary was up there, and remember that blue hat and that blue coat. And he said, afterward, the Maineites who went, there were about 16 years running from Maine and Maine South, our colony on the other side of the bridge. And they came over here, over to the White House, and went inside to have coffee and cookies and cake and coffee cake to get warm. And he said she walked over to the Maineites, and he said her first words to me were, and to the group, Rick, do you remember when Mr. Carlson kicked us out of the class in History of Civilization? That was the only time I was ever crossed. And I looked at Nancy, my wife, and then looked at Rick, and I looked back at Nancy, and Nancy looked at me. We both looked at Rick, and he said, you've got to be kidding, you're putting this on. No, honest to God, Mr. Carlson, those were her first words. So 4 years later, we went to her great birthday party, and then she had one over at Eugene Field School, and they were making a tape to Bill Curtis for the library. And I was sitting next to her mother in the audience, and I said, I've got something to ask about. I said, you know, I've read about my kicking her out in several books, including one by an FBI agent who was way off mark. He said she was very vitriolic and upset and snarly. She never was like that at all. She was just very nice all the time. And I said, Hillary, you're supposed to have said to Rick, and Rick was sitting right next to her at Eugene Field Hospital School, the grammar school where she had gone. She was talking to teachers. And I told her what she said. She looked up like this, put her head up, looked like this again, and she looked over. She said, well, Paul, you forget you spent 4 days getting us ready for that speech. And she said, you finally got upset because we were giggling and talking. You said, it'd be better to be dead than red, young lady. And Rick just whispered to me, well, gee, frankly, I'd rather be alive. And she said, just hit me funny. And we started giggling. And then you got mad and took us out of the hall. But she was a good student here, and she used to wear Coke bottle-like glasses. And if you read any biographies, some of the kids who went to school with her said that she wasn't very nice, that she was kind of snooty. So at the reunion in 1995, I was still in a wheelchair, and Paul McClellan was taking me around in a wheelchair because I was still paralyzed. She was asked this. She came out with Bill Clinton, the president, on the dais there to speak to 1,700. We had a cocktail party for an hour before that. And he came right over to me and said, I understand you're sick, that you're not feeling well. We're glad that you're here. Hillary tells me she had to send you a couple of letters to get you to come. And he said, I remember talking to you at the 25th anniversary when he was still governor, and they were very lovey-dovey that night. So Hillary said, you know, lots of things, but the fact of the matter is, she said, you know, I read in these books about my being snobbish and not saying hello to people in the halls when I was in school. She said, you've got to remember, I wore thick glasses. And she said, as a freshman, sophomore, and junior, she said, I was very aware of these ugly glasses I had to wear, and I'd take them off as soon as the class was over, and I'd walk out in the hall, and she said, then I couldn't see anything. She said, I had to get to my next class. She said, that's why, she said, if any of you were feeling I was snobbish, that's the reason. She said, I was very proud of the fact that they didn't have to wear them in the halls, they didn't want to, and she said that that's the reason. So the kids all, of course, clapped for her. But this is, or that Blue Demon is the last of the original Blue Demons that came from her class on the 25th anniversary. We had the Maine South Hawk next to it. It fell apart, but the class of 65 always holds its reunions with Maine South. And it feels very close, just like Maine West, class 59 holds its reunion with Maine East. And a piece of wood on the wall here. This piece, Churchill stood on that. That was part of the platform that Winston Churchill stood on when he gave his Iron Curtain speech in Folsom, Missouri. And we tell the story of America, starting with the Vikings and the Viking ship, the Spanish crown, and the Mayflower, and the Santa Maria and the Mayflower, and tell the story of American hats because I'd run out of room. But they made me take all this stuff down, put in storage. And I was told by the assistant principal, Mr. Fallhaber, I said, you mean to say, I said, well, how am I going to illustrate things in American history and government if I don't have my things up? I said, if they get bored with this old geezer, there's something in the room they can look at. You know, and what do you mean, right? Okay. And so the fact of the matter was, he says to me, well, just put it in storage, and if you need something, you can run down the basement. I looked at him and I said, Ken, you're much too smart to me. He said, don't take your answer. And they made me put everything in storage. It took all summer to get it put back. They had to take the gentleman who was in this room, put him in another room, take another gentleman over there, and put him over here. We all had to be moved around. I had 2 custodians, had to put everything back up. It cost the taxpayers between $5,000 and $10,000. Is it any wonder that people ask about voucher systems? Is it any wonder that people question the education departments that oftentimes make policy? Think about that. As you know, I'm at a stage age where I can say anything I feel, and I have always been doing this, so I've always been trouble in the school. But the fact is, as Maine East, we have a beautiful school here, but it was lost, all because a tight little coterie of people saw a chance to sell it to Maine, to Luther General, in my opinion. Yes?
May I ask about the umbrella?
Yes, the umbrella is to remind them of the period of appeasement between the First World War and the Second World War under Chamberlain. Black umbrella is always used in cartoons for that purpose. We have sitting, Mainite has framed the seal of the United States, which was blown under Stonewall Jackson's picture here. And then we have a beautiful mural that's going here and a huge picture of Lincoln taken in 1858 and found in the stairs in the 50s and
Still got your old dog.
60s.
If you stepped on it.
Now they're planning a big
On the drawing upstairs in the class, it looks at Veritas. A little story connected with that. It looks at Veritas is the symbol, or is the creed of Yale University. Lux et Veritas, light and truth. And on the porch here, we have the name of Ning Ely, who was a lawyer from Yale, came from Yale Law School, and I believe that when he was on the Board of Education, I taught his grandchildren in my first classes back in junior high in the old Maine. I believe he probably said to the board, let's have a creed, and we decided to have looks at Veritas. Harvard has Veritas, and of course Hillary went to law school there too. And I think you all know that Maine is back in the news with regard to this court case. It's Penny Pullen from the class of 65 who won against Rosemary Mulligan, who's a Maine graduate also. And they're using that in the Supreme Court in Florida. So People magazine in '93 had an article about Hillary on about page 72, one about 5 pages, and then one about Terry Ford on page 95. And I thought, what other school in the country could have 2 articles? Not Maine South, not Maine West, but our school. Because Hillary learned most of her leadership here. she'll tell you that. She wanted to come back here. So here you have and the class of 30, when they came in here for one semester, I just had a lady from class of 30 in here last year, we didn't have these on here. And nobody did. These were put up in 64 by the class of 64 because the plasterers and painters were coming in here to square off the ceiling. And our ceiling in the halls is arched just like it is here. And so to keep the guys from bringing their ladders and their wheelbarrows across this, they put these ropes on. Before they actually didn't need them, because class of 30 said nobody used to walk on the ceiling. If you did, you had to right across this part of your shoulder if you were underclassmen, so I remember that. So, I'm just going to serenade you with one verse of the song, kind of was sung all over the world to Music Master Rules. It is Why You're Back in Maine, and it's the alma mater song from our school, which was dedicated to the class of 38. The first verse was written by Alexander Harley for the class of 37 and 38. Said, would you write a song for us? He said, no, but I'll write a second verse. I just didn't say the second verse to him. Alma mater then shall be in our cherished memory, our guiding light of purpose true, shone by our banner white and blue, as we now your praises sing. May our anthem loudly ring, Maine the name we glorify, for her fame shall never die. I hope you have a great reunion tonight. God bless you all. Enjoy your lunch. Not much anymore, I'm afraid. It's gone.
Let's go see the pool. Yeah.
It's in for piano to get through.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The final number is going to be a very significant title piece called The Preacher.